Good afternoon. How are you? Well, it's 40 to 42. Feels cold today. There's actually snow on the nearby hills. They call them the Short Hill Mountains because it's short. The Confederate troops used to climb over those hills and come to what was a nearby northern encampment, and they'd attack and then they'd disappear over the hill again. I don't know how they did in snow, but they probably did well. These guys were amazing riders. So here I am today on my trail among the trees, nary a leaf in sight, and the kind of weather that you don't want to be out on unless you're actually going to do something in it. So it cuts against the chill. In terms of the chill, in the national government, we've had a long-standing debate about Ukraine. Are we going to fail Ukraine because they're short on ammunition and what they need? And we have become their bank for funds, arms, training, and perhaps more that we don't know about. And the push is going to come from the White House this week, because Biden is hosting Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, and there has been some movement on the Hill to support Ukraine, and perhaps they're more afraid to leave town without doing something, and they don't intend to delay leaving town. What's going to happen with Israel is quite another question. That is, what are we going to do about funding? I expect that we will do the funding. I don't know if they'll be joint projects or separate. If they're joint, they may give deniability to some that prefer one and not the other. We'll see how that works out. But I think my feeling is it's going to work out. We should discuss anti-Semitism. As a kid, I saw a variety of discriminations, and I didn't really understand it. Once I was at a house, and we were playing, and my friend Ralphie was there, and Stevie was black, and the mother came to me and said, when you get a chance, I'd like you to leave, but you can come back later, just don't come with Stevie. That was the first sense I had about discrimination having to do with race. But there was some remarks among the neighborhood about Jews, so I had some sense of anti-Semitism. And it would seem to me to not require any heavy lifting to say that if somebody's talking about killing people because they're Jews, that's not allowed. And but more than that, there has to be action. And when I say action, I don't mean on the part of the person saying that, because inciting people to do something is often so entangled with the provocation. It's like lighting a match near a gas-filled atmosphere. It's just going to rip through it, explode, actually. Exothermic reaction. And so that's what we have. So what's the proper response from a university president? And I don't know why it is that we have an infection that seems to deprive leaders of complete candor and common sense action. So what do you do if somebody proposes something as extreme in either direction, either against Arabs or Jews? And you say, well, you get called on the carpet, it violates our guidelines, and you can be suspended or expelled. We won't have that in the university. You can have all sorts of free speech, but not that. It is aggravating that we can say this about university presidents, but we don't say it about Trump. We don't say he should be treated the same way, that those who associate with him, the Republicans in the Republican Party, that they should be condemned and ostracized and perhaps lose their positions in Congress or the Senate. We don't say that. We can kick out somebody like unsaintly Santos, but not senators, congressmen, not leaders of industry. I mean, and it's unfortunate that the three people that are in this situation, because they didn't speak clearly and they didn't probably talk the way you'd expect or that they should. And there shouldn't have been a hesitation. But we're building into people this status suspended animation as they look into a reality and a rule, and they freeze and don't do what's obvious and what's right and what we presume is what they think. Looking at the Pennsylvania chancellor, she's a woman with a long career in difficult legal and political issues, and has run a variety of agencies, and she's, I think, 57, so she has enough experience. And in an instant, she loses her position, her opportunity to lead, to bring great minds into the world, and in part because hers didn't work. And I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt because of her apology afterwards. But too late, and you may think that one error should not destroy a whole career. But when you hear it repeated, you know. Now, I don't think the Congresswoman did it right at all. These kinds of conversations, I think, if done differently for people that don't understand how politics is a contact sport, despite their experience, I think we have to look more carefully at that. What if you were conversational with her originally? So you mean to say if they were threatening to kill, that wouldn't, you think that would matter? What, you wouldn't do anything to a student who said, they were, well, they're guilty as charged or so defensive as they may be guilty as charged, or they may have been a deer in a headlight. But the contrast is what really bothers me. We take three women and attack them, while all the guys do all this terrible stuff and nothing, I mean nothing, happens to them. So, on the one hand, we destroy the careers, perhaps, of all three women who testified before Congress. On the other hand, we exalt the crime breakers, the offenders, who would overthrow our whole government, and who talk pretty indiscriminately about the most tragic and terrible ways to handle this situation. So what else is going on? Trump's not going to take the stand. Well, what does he have to say? And the judge has the benefit, if you can call it that, of whatever Trump said before that the court will reject, will likely reject, given the items that we're familiar with. His stories about, I don't know how big my home was at Mar-a-Lago, how big my home was on Fifth Avenue. This kind of stuff is just not tolerable. And then Chutkan is doing something, and this is another part of this expression. That is, she is faced with an appeal by Trump, who believes he should be immune from prosecution. And she's thinking of delaying or stopping pretrial hearings until all the courts decide whether he's immune or not. Doesn't she have an opinion about this? Shouldn't she go forward with her trial because it's so terribly frivolous to begin with? Is she losing her nerve? Is it too tense or too difficult? Give her another defendant, no hesitation. The system continues on two plateaus, and you and I, are not on the top plateau. We see it every day that Trump gets away with his misconduct. that it happens, that it's permitted. Well, let's talk about a minor problem. That's really not minor. We have another alert in my area, but I'm sure it's elsewhere in the nation, that the favored rockfish is in less supply. It's diminished more at any time since, I think, 2019. I'm not sure. I don't eat rockfish, but I do follow the market, and I don't mean in an investment sense. I mean what's happening to our stores of different kind of species, water, land, fowl, whatever. And why are these fish suffering? Well, we have invasive predators, which is another thing that we have with our leafy elements in our society. We have a problem with warm water, which affects their ability to survive. And there are people overfishing. That's the tragedy of the commons. Now, I've said it before, and if you don't remember it, it's a good thing if you get into a conversation with somebody, because it's an obvious example of what it means to make too much of a demand on a limited resource. And the tragedy of the commons is something like, you have a vast space. I always picture Boston and in the commons, and a few cows are out there grazing. Plenty of grazing, no problem. More and more people start putting their cows on the commons to graze, and pretty soon they eat it down to the dirt. No grazing, where do the cattle eat? That's the tragedy of the commons. And so, whether it's fish or air or water, if we do not take care with those things and fight the fossil fuel people who under no circumstances are prepared to release their dominion over us, well, those of us who are older are going to get a chance to participate in the destruction of the planet by observation. I mean, I wouldn't do anything to compromise it myself, but and I try to do the contrary. But it takes government and the large players. And over in COP28, we're getting notice that the environmental get-together with so many people has a draft document that will be announced that will say, hey, we're going to continue fossil fuels. Just don't get it. So we are at odds with the irresponsible, uninformed, ignorant, selfish, profit-driven sons of bitches who do these things. And some said, consider where we're meeting, in the middle of oil country, and who's hosting this, and then should we be surprised by the draft? That is, that says fossil fuels are okay. We're going to continue it. We're going to continue it past when you and I are alive. And so that means we're going to feel it, and the world's going to feel it, because nobody knows what the timetable is. If we've passed the tipping point, which I think we have, and you can judge that by the weather and resources and a whole variety of things and scientific studies that proliferate, and lazy people want to hear that, oh, it's all a con. And I'm talking about Trump's gang of idiots, and that's what we're up against. We're up against ignorance, selfishness, and so forth, and we have to deal with it. I think the most important thing I saw over the weekend was the out front, full-blown statements that we are in danger of having a government that's a dictatorship. I don't think we've seen anything that strong before. And now more and more people are saying it. What we need, however, is the reaction and action to that. So you could take as an example the failure of thinking that you can just punt in a difficult situation and get through it, which is what I feel that the three presidents of the universities did. Maybe not consciously, but that's what they did. Just get through this, it'll all be over. Well, it's all going to be over in a way that you never anticipated. So that's some of my thinking on this wonderful, chilly day in my cathedral of trees. So until tomorrow, take care. Bye-bye.